I wasn't sure at the start of this year whether I could ever perform at my best again. I wasn't at all certain. I don't think anyone's gone and won all 3 Australian Ironman races in 1 year. So at the start of the year, I sat down with my coach, Cameron Watt, and we wrote down, well, he had written down on a piece of paper some races that he thought that would work for me to perform well in Hawaii. And that excluded the Ironman World Championships that were held in May in St. George, Utah, which for me was a little bit, I guess, disappointing not to have that one on the radar. But he said if you could perform well at these or win them and then head over and have a performance like you did in 2019 in Hawaii, would you take it? And I think anyone would take. We basically did exactly what the piece of paper said. It said an early season Ironman, an Ironman regional championship, head to Hawaii and get a really good race out of that again. And yeah, I think any athlete would, in hindsight, of course, you would take it. So, albeit sacrificing St. George, I think it was the right thing for me. So I started triathlon a very long time ago. I think maybe I was 19. And I'd come from a running background through school. And I think it was all a journey and an adventure at the time. I don't think I cared so much about results when I very first started. It was more about the progression. And I think that's always been with me as I've improved over time. It's not so much about winning or results. It's more about me progressing through my career or overcoming challenges if they're new challenges as you go through different sections of your career. But yeah, I think, you're always looking to impress when you're younger, I think, and get on the radar, I guess. And, there's always a step. And I think the key with that for me was always to just chip away at the next small step and not so much worry about the actual outcome. And then that leads to achievement of bigger goals in the long run. It's a very long-term plan that you have to have in your mind to be able to go from an complete amateur to, a career professional. It took a lot of effort, or just both mentally and physically, to actually claw away and claw myself back. But what I do realise from the experience is that fitness isn't built in 3 months. It's not built in 6 months. It's built over a period of years. And so, of course, I did some damage having an injury and having some other personal issues. I think it took a hold that was bigger than I expected out of my fitness base. And it's taken what I thought was 21 was going to be okay. It wasn't at all. And it was almost like my 2016 when I first started working with my coach. And it's almost like I had to wait another year before that training had sort of embedded itself in me before I could actually step to another level. So I'm pretty excited about the next few months. I obviously grew up in Australia. Most of my racing initially was in Australia. I did a lot of racing while I was still working in Australia as well. So when you're working full time and you're an amateur professional, you sort of can only race weekends. So I think I've pretty much raced in every state and every capital city there is in Australia at all different levels as well and different distances too. And so, yeah, I love to be involved in the community here. I was on the board of Triathlon Australia. And I do spend a lot of time trying to, interact with clubs and things. And I love it on race day in Australia when everybody just gets behind you. And I think it's always great to have not just the races I always do, but other Australian races scheduled in to my schedule for the year. I think when you're overseas, you get fans at races, but not like it is in Australia. I think people really get behind you, and particularly if you've had any interactions with clubs in that area or something. I found even at Melbourne on the weekend, there was a whole group from a club that were just right behind me, and I don't remember how I interacted with them, but obviously they knew my name before I come past. And I think, yeah, you know, I was having a rubbish day, but having people there cheering for you and really caring about your performance, I think just lifts you that little bit and gets you through. And it can also lift you to another level when you're actually out in front. I think I was feeling relief. It was a little bit emotional for me on that one because it'd been just such an effort over. I mean, I hadn't won an Ironman since Arizona in 2019, and I mean, I guess I'd only actually done 2 or 3 races, but you know, you're starting to think, am I still capable of this? And
yeah, that was one of the hardest races I've actually ever had to do to win. So full credit to Beck for just being there all day and putting the pressure on. I think we probably raced one of the fastest times ever on this course, so we're really going for it all day, and yeah, I'm just like ecstatic with the victory.
There's actually an enormous amount of pressure when you come into a race with a certain level of credential, I guess, with previous results to perform at a certain level. And so I think, you know, that obviously builds up, and that it's not, if you do win the race, it's like, well, that was expected, but if you don't, it's like, what happened? So the pressure was enormous, even though it was a matter of executing a regular race for me. So I think I felt quite a bit of emotion in the sense of relief, but also, you know, the elation of possibility of maybe now we're back on track and things could be good in the future. Oh, I love Ironman Cairns. I have boomerangs and things, so every year, if you win, you get given a boomerang, and I think, you know, the idea is that you come back to the race. And it was my first 70.3 victory in 2012, so 10 years before, it was, you know, I was still quite young then, new to half distance racing and still working full time as well. So, yeah, and I've come back pretty much every year, unless I've been injured or had a race I had to do overseas. We pretty much either did the 70.3 or the full every year. So it means a lot to me. And it's the Asia Pacific Championship, so it brings more competition. And, you know, the couple of times I'd been second to maybe 2 or 3 times I've been second to really good athletes. And I really wanted to get the title back that I had from 2017. And, you know, off the back of Port Macquarie, I'm like, well, that's good training day into this. And, you know, everything was kind of headed in the right direction. And so, yeah, I really wanted that title back. And I sort of, you know, I tried to put everything in place in between Port Macquarie and Cairns to just get that little bit more out of myself. And I think I had a better day in Cairns than at Port Macquarie. Just elated. I mean, you know, 2 Ironmans in the space of 4 weeks and winning them both is pretty amazing for me.
Ironman Cairns champion. How does that feel?
I'm so thrilled. Yeah, like I love this race. I've tried to come every single year. It was my first 70.3 win and also my first Ironman win, so it means a lot to me. I've got a few of these boomerangs, and like I just love the crowds here. The event's amazing. It's just, look at the weather and everything's just immaculate. The course, it's perfect.
Talk us through your race today.
Yeah, look, we had a good group in the swim. It meant that I could pretty much switch off and just hang in there with them. I sort of ended up getting out the water first though, and just took off on the bike. And my goal was to get away from the group, make it a fair race, and everyone had to work for it so that we're equally hurting on the run. And then in the run, I just tried to hold Radka. I knew she'd chase early, and then I just hold the gap. But credit to Radka, she stayed on there, and that was her first Ironman completed, and that was, you know, good things to come from her for sure. But I hung in there, and maybe my legs are pretty sore from Port Mac too. That's 5 weeks ago, but yeah, did the job.
I don't know if anyone's done it before. I don't even know if it's a thing. I've had a pretty good race in Hawaii. It's pretty difficult to do 4 good Ironmans in 1 year as well. It's also a risk to do 4 Ironmans in 1 year, because if it doesn't go to plan, it makes the build into next season longer. There's 2 good things about this race. 1, we could win and take all 3 titles, but also it means that we'll qualify for the Hawaiian Ironman, which takes the pressure off for next year. I've never done Ironman Western Australia. It's going to be fast, it's going to be hectic. I'm not going to be the only woman out there trying to win the race, so the pace is going to be on. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But it would be so cool to take out all 3 titles and put any demons behind me.